Welcome, Dr. Sedlac. How are you today?
Thank you, Andrea.
Wonderful.
It's great.
Great. So today we're going to talk about a subject that nobody wants to talk about, colonoscopies. So what I'd like to cover, if we can, is why everyone should get one, why it's not nearly as bad as we think it is, and how to get our loved ones to actually do it. Can we cover those things?
That's easy.
Okay, perfect.
Easy. What we've been looking at in the last 20 or 30 years in medicine is the idea of early detection and prevention. Can you prevent somebody from getting cancer? And if somebody has unfortunately gotten cancer, can you detect it earlier to improve the prognosis? And one of the things that we found is that the risk of colon cancer it rises after the age of 50.
All right.
All right. The other thing we found is that colon cancers develop in polyps, which are small growths in the colon.
All right. And would you feel a polyp if you?
No.
Okay.
And colon cancer is silent. All right. You don't generally, people don't find colon cancer or know that they've got colon cancer until it's very, very late. And they're obstructed or they're bleeding, and generally things have spread beyond control.
All right.
Interestingly, one of the things that we found with this is that if we keep people polyp-free, if you aggressively keep people polyp-free, you can reduce to eliminate their risk of developing colon cancer.
All right.
All right. So cancers develop in polyps generally.
Okay.
So what we came up with is a procedure called colonoscopy.
Okay.
And in the 40s and 50s, the earliest version of this was the proctoscopy, and everybody knows about proctologists, and Jerry Seinfeld did jokes about proctologists. And what they did was they took a short metal scope, about a foot long, and they would look, you'd basically bend over and they would look into your rectum.
All right, and it's not nearly that bad anymore.
Oh, God, no. The interesting thing about that is you've got about 4 feet of colon, and this looked at a foot of it.
Right.
All right. And what we found was that most cancers that we found, in fact, up to 80% of cancers in the 1960s were found in the rectum and the sigmoid, the lowest part of the colon.
All right.
And starting in the early 1960s, we developed smaller scopes that were flexible and that we could pass up further and further and further into the colon. And so what we've got now is a procedure of looking at the entire colon.
All right. And
what we do for that, what I tell all the patients is the prep is the worst part.
Right.
And that's the clean out.
Yes.
And it's really not that bad, but what we generally have you drink is 2 quarts of a cleansing solution, and it comes out the other end. And once we've gotten your colon clean, then we bring you into our procedure room, into the colonoscopy room. We have an anesthesiologist that gives you the medicine propofol, which is the best. It comes on very quickly, puts you to sleep, and as soon as they turn it off, you wake up. And there's no hangover for it or anything like that. But while we're doing the scope, you don't know what's going on. You're asleep. You sleep through the scope. I'll say that as a client myself, and I've had it myself with propofol, and it was great. Didn't feel anything, didn't know anything was going on, and had no hangover. Actually, the rules are you can't drive yourself home, but I felt I would have been perfectly fine driving myself home.
So it's really
really in and out, come in, go home. What we found with colonoscopy is, where, as I said, if we're screening people, as I said, in the 60s, 80% of colon cancers were found in the rectum and the sigmoid, the lowest part of the colon.
Right.
80% now are found above that.
Oh.
So we've actually shifted where colon cancers are being diagnosed by diagnosing them earlier with these screening tests.
And by doing that, does it like increase the chances that you wouldn't have to have like a bowel resection? I mean, is that...
Well, sure, everybody worries about having surgery, which hurts me as a surgeon, but you know, nobody wants to have surgery if they don't have to have it. And as I said, if we keep you polyp-free, we can reduce or eliminate your risk of developing colon cancer.
All right.
All right.
What is the risk? I mean, is there a high risk? I mean, you know...
Risk of the procedure of colonoscopy, or
risk of developing cancer? Say, you know, I'm trying to convince my father that he needs to go in and get his colonoscopy. What are the chances that he's going to have colon cancer?
Well, there's two ways of answering that. First, when you talk about an individual person, your chances of developing cancer are either 100 or 0. You either get it or you don't.
Right.
When you talk about large populations, again, we look at risk factors.
Right.
All right. And so, for example, a family history of colon cancer. If somebody in the family has had colon cancer, your risk can rise as high as 30 or 40% of developing colon cancer. We base screening on that. So the risk of colon cancer before age 50, if you don't have a family history, is very small.
All right.
All right. If you've got beyond age 50, say 1 to 2% of the population will develop colon cancer. All right. Again, much higher if you've got risk factors.
Right.
The other thing that we find, and we tailor screening, and so we generally recommend that you get your first colonoscopy around the age of 50.
All right.
And then every 5 to 10 years, if you don't have polyps, if that colonoscopy was clean, then in 5 or 10 years. If you have polyps, then we'll do it again in somewhere between 1 and 5 years.
Okay.
Again, depending on how many polyps we find,
Right.
again, what your risk factors are.
Yep.
If you've had a relative with colon cancer, we recommend that you get your first colonoscopy 10 years before the youngest person in your family got colon cancer.
Right.
All right.
All right.
So that we start that screening.
Yep.
If you've got a disease that would predispose to colon cancer, if you've had ulcerative colitis for a long time, again, we set you in a separate screening group.
All right.
But for the most part, most people, again, low risk, age 50, and then every 5 to 10 years thereafter.
And if you do develop colon cancer, what's the prognosis for most people who haven't had the screening, haven't had the polyps removed, get to that point where they're...
If you've got an advanced colon cancer,
Yeah.
You have a 90 to 95% chance of being dead within 6 months to a year.
So we definitely need
Get it done.
to get the screening. And I actually have had it too, and it's not nearly as bad as you think.
The cure rate, if you've got an early stage colon cancer, if you're stage 1, the cure rate is 98%.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And
Thank
I
you,
encourage
Andrea.
all of you, go out, make an appointment, get your colonoscopies.